So we may have a battle on the floor, but the battle is for the conference and the country.
Some of the reasons that these people have for not voting for McCarthy are unbelievably petty.
Kevin McCarthy was taking the path of Nancy Pelosi and following her precedents.
Are you ready to be entertained? This story is so magnificent, and I have so many great clips to share with you. So this is over. Kevin McCarthy, who is trying to become the Speaker of the House. He is a Republican member, of course. They currently control the House in terms of numbers, though it's very slim. But, of course, there are some even crazier Republicans to the right of him, sort of, that are basically preventing him from actually becoming Speaker, forcing this to at least multiple ballots, because as I am recording this, Kevin McCarthy just lost his first ballot to become Speaker of the House. And while this is all going on, Dan Crenshaw is freaking out on his fellow Republican lawmakers in the most amazing way. In multiple appearances on cable news, he let him have it and named names, did not hold back. So let me start here with first what just happened. As I said, Kevin McCarthy loses first ballot for Speaker. First time House majority has failed to elect Speaker on the first ballot in a century. The last time this happened was in 1923 when House Republicans took 9 ballots to elect a Speaker. So it is now, the number's up to 8 GOP votes against McCarthy. So McCarthy needs 218 to be able to win the majority, meaning he can only lose 4 votes. He's already up to losing 8 votes. And I'll get to a screenshot in a second here where there is likely around 14 to 20 people that are not going to vote for him on the GOP side. Of course, Democrats are not supporting him, which if they did, maybe Kevin McCarthy has to work out some deal, though I imagine that won't happen just based on him likely losing votes for his own side if he were to try and get Democrats over. But this is just some of the rules. Before we get to some of these clips, which are incredible, let me just set the stage here. So the eventual Speaker typically needs, as I told you, 218 votes. If no candidate secures the majority on the first ballot, the process will repeat until the Speaker is elected. A Speaker can win with fewer than 218 votes if not every member shows up or if some vote present. Quote, under the modern practice, the Speaker is elected by a majority of members, elect voting by surname. The last time, as I told you, was 1923, and of the 14 multiple ballot elections for House Speaker, 13 occurred before the Civil War. So this is not a very common thing for the majority to not be able to elect the Speaker in the first vote. McCarthy facing a lot of opposition that you'd think, is it based on some kind of policy? These other members really want something, a different direction for the party? No, it's all bullshit. So this is where, even I am not a fan of Dan Crenshaw for obvious reasons, but he is correct in terms of where he sits, and what he's simply asking for is to just elect the next Speaker as a Republican. McCarthy's already head of the caucus. Might as well put him in as Speaker. But as you'll see, Crenshaw's criticisms are accurate, even though he is wrong in his ideology and where he focuses his attention and his energy. In terms of his criticisms and what his party should be doing in terms of holding power, he is absolutely correct. So McCarthy acknowledges that behind closed doors, there are likely 20 or so members voting against him, not 5. Here are 14 that have said on the record that they're not going to vote for him. So quite a number of names here. Boebert isn't on this list, even though she is speaking out against him publicly. So I'll get to that clip at the very end of this video. But he told McCarthy told reporters on Tuesday he won't drop out if he fails the first vote, promising a floor fight even if the process goes to multiple ballots. At the end of the day, we'll get there. And I have to assume that he will, but maybe he won't. So one of the big things these other members are fighting for, these freaks right here, is that they want a single member of the caucus to be able to basically recall Kevin McCarthy. So if one person doesn't like something McCarthy does, then they have the ability to call a vote to replace him, which is insane. Think of think of how many times that will likely happen if that's the case. McCarthy came back apparently with a deal of, 5 members, if 5 of them want to do it, as opposed to half the caucus, which is what it normally is. If 5 of them want to recall him, okay, well then he's okay with that. But they still wouldn't go for that. They want a single individual to be able to recall Kevin McCarthy or have a vote to recall him, which is ridiculous. But let me get to the first clip here. So here's Dan Crenshaw. I may just, I'll play this by itself. So I'll play this for you, and he does not hold back.
This handful of members is very clearly looking for notoriety over principle. That's what it is. And anyone who suggests differently is in some kind of make-believe fantasy reality. It's not true. They lost those debates. That should have been the end of it, because that's how a team works, right? You hash this stuff out, you figure it out, and then you move on. But if you're a narcissist and you believe that your opinion is so much more important than everyone else's, then you'll keep going. And you'll threaten to tear down the team for the benefit of the Democrats, just because of your own sense of self-importance. They are enemies now. They have made it clear that they prefer a Democrat agenda than a Republican one.
I am loving this so much that this is happening publicly, that they are in a real fight here. So look, for a while it appeared that maybe this is a bunch of hot air. They're gonna eventually come, they're just trying to negotiate with McCarthy, trying to get whatever they want out of him, and then they'll vote for him in the first ballot. But no, they are really fighting, and Dan Crenshaw is incredibly pissed that they are doing that. So here is another clip, and I'm going to show you actually in this video two different, another clip from his Fox News appearance. But here's the first one. So he's on here. I'll just watch this with you, and he gets even more specific, and this is wonderful.
Look, you've got these members, you just showed who they are. No one knows what their goal is. They say their goal is some noble cause for the cause of conservatism, for the people, for holding the swamp accountable, right? These are the phrases that they'll use to make themselves seem like they're some white knights out there to save you. Of course, none of this is true. None of this is true whatsoever. This is purely a play for more airtime, and they're getting it. There's some of these people who nobody knows who they are. Like people know who Scott Perry is, but nobody knows who Bob Good is. You know why Bob Good's not voting for Kevin McCarthy? Because Kevin McCarthy took 3 weeks to call him after he won his election, after Kevin McCarthy put $2 million into that election. Some of the reasons that these people have for not voting for McCarthy are unbelievably petty. Unbelievably petty. This is about showmanship. This is about notoriety. It has nothing to do with the conservative agenda. I would love for them to at least come out once and say, look, we actually disagree on the priorities of Kevin McCarthy and the rest of the Republicans. We have policy disagreements, and we won't vote for you until you prioritize those policies that we think would be better for the American people. Have they said anything like that? No. Not once.
You know what?
Not once.
So before I continue here, this is why I say they are sort of to the right of McCarthy, but not really, because there's no actual policy disagreements here. It is all about narcissism. So Dan Crenshaw is actually accurate in his criticisms of these crazy Republicans, these even crazier Republicans who just won't vote for McCarthy because they simply want attention and cameras. And they want to pretend it's about for the American people when they are not fighting over any actual policy differences. It's all a bunch of trash. So a little more here. Let me finish this off.
And Republicans have been waiting years for this opportunity to take over the House. And so when the rest of the country looks at how Republicans are handling day one, they can't unite, they can't come together. It's day one and they can't agree already.
Yeah, it's a shame. It makes us look foolish. If I didn't know any better, it's like the Democrats paid these people off. Hey, let's pay them off. Let's make it look like the Republicans can't govern and don't deserve any gavels whatsoever. That's what it makes it look like. Yeah. Again, their demands are foolish. Their demands are inside baseball procedural issues. That's what they are. Their demands are things that the average American doesn't care about at all. The average American cares about defunding 87,000 IRS agents. That's actually what's going to be on the floor today if McCarthy gets 218.
Is that really what? Okay, so look, I'm with. If I was a Republican, I would be agreeing with Dan Crenshaw, on all of his points about criticizing these members that won't vote for McCarthy. But Americans really care about defunding the IRS. Let me show you. Maybe they do if they don't know any better. But if you pay attention to why they are so concerned about this, this is what happened back in August. The IRS just got $80 billion to beef up a big goal going after rich tax dodgers. So the IRS has more money now to go after specifically rich people screwing the system. That's why you're all of a sudden hearing about, oh, we got to defund the IRS, pretending it's about, the average American, when really it's about their wealthy donors. But look, it's one thing if the members in the party were against McCarthy because of that, and they want to actually increase this funding and keep that there. But again, they're not saying that. So it's not about this policy disagreement. Those members are also on board. The ones against McCarthy are also on board with defunding the IRS. So it's all about just trying to get the cameras, trying to get the personal, trying to raise their profile in this attempt to try and get McCarthy out of the spot or prevent him from taking the spot. It's all so ridiculous and self-serving. So here, I am a no. Matt Gaetz emerges from McCarthy's office after meeting amid tense speakership battle. How tense was this? McCarthy raises voice, swears inside a GOP meeting. So he was apparently pretty pissed for good reason. Again, from his perspective, for a good reason, pissed at the other members for not just coming on board. And here is a bit of what McCarthy said after he emerged from that meeting.
For a long time. I've been leader for 4 years. I came into this position and we had less than 200 members. We are now sitting in the majority. We put forth to the American public a commitment to America. There's times we're going to have to argue with our own members if they're looking at for only positions for themselves, not for the country. For the last 2 months, we worked together as a whole conference to develop rules that empower all members. But we're not empowering certain members over others. Last night I was presented the only way to have 218 votes if I provided certain members with certain positions, certain gavels, to take over the church committee, to have certain budgets. And they even came to the position where one, Matt Gaetz, said, I don't care if we go to plurality and we elect Hakeem Jeffries and it hurts the new frontline members not to get reelected. Well, that's not about America, and I will always fight to put the American people first, not a few individuals that want something for themselves. So we may have a battle on the floor, but the battle is for the conference and the country, and that's fine with me.
Understand how rare it is for Republicans in the House to be naming names of their own party and criticizing them. So here McCarthy calling out Matt Gaetz, again, for good reason, again, from his perspective, but he's right. This is all about a whole lot of nothing. All about, what some of them want in terms of personal positions on in certain committees, but largely it's been about trying to get him out or having the ability to, again, recall McCarthy with a single person being against him. So it's all, again, this whole thing is just so absurd. But let me show you another clip from this Fox and Friends interview with Dan Crenshaw is just top to bottom incredibly entertaining. Here is the last bit of that.
They keep acting like they've got somebody in the wings. They're just waiting. You'll see on the day of, right? They keep saying that. They're like children. This is such a childish attempt at gaining more and more attention. You know why they say it like that? Because they want you to interview them again. That's why they're doing it. Please interview. You'll see if you just put me on TV just one more time, please. Then I'll tell you who we're going to go for. But here's the thing: they've got nobody. Even if they did, I promise you, there's a ton of Republicans who will not vote for them. They will not vote for anyone except Kevin McCarthy. Because here's the thing: this is a general election. All right, we had our primary election, and Kevin McCarthy won with 85% of the vote. That's a primary election. Now we're in the general election. So if you're not voting for our GOP nominee, you are voting for Democrats. You are enabling Democrats. Yep. And let's make something very clear. You know who is technically the Speaker of the House if Kevin isn't sworn in? It is a clerk who is appointed by Nancy Pelosi. So the only person you're empowering are the Democrats. The Democrats are cheering. The Democrats are so happy that this is all happening because these guys and these girls wanted to make this happen. They wanted so much notoriety. Their own sense of self-aggrandizement is so important to them that they needed to make this happen.
Well, we're going to find out.
So, this goes on, of course. Surprisingly, everyone on the couch is with Crenshaw here and McCarthy. Even Kilmeade was criticizing the other Republicans for not having any real reason to refute McCarthy and his speakership here. So I would be curious to poll Republican voters on how they feel about all this, because I would want to know why voters would be so against McCarthy, considering the agenda is exactly the same, regardless of what side of this debate you're on. Because it's again, all about nothing except these individual members and what they want out of committees, or what they want in terms of power and the attention being on them. So as I told you, Brian Kilmeade rips McCarthy holdouts for putting ego ahead of America. Last thing here. So I debated how much of this to show, because all of this just, this is all just trash, right? At this point. Boebert, who isn't even on that list as I showed you, she is also coming out saying McCarthy is taking the path of Nancy Pelosi. I don't even know how. So she's claiming taking the path of Nancy Pelosi because McCarthy's against a single member recalling him, which any speaker, of course, would be, because why would you want to create all this unneeded extra waste of time if one person is unhappy with something you did? I mean, this shit goes on. Here we are being sworn at instead of being sworn in. Going, of course, to McCarthy, swearing at them. And here's Gates, again, just being the worst person. If you want to drain the swamp, you cannot put the biggest alligator in charge of the exercise. I'm a Florida man, and I know what I speak. Okay, whatever. This is all just dumb now at this point. I'll link to all, if you want to watch these videos, I'll link to this thread below this video under sources on YouTube. You can watch all this trash, but I think I showed you the important parts. And that was Dan Crenshaw and his reaction to all of this. As I said, this is still going on. So who knows how many more rounds of voting this is going to take to actually finally have a Speaker of the House. Will McCarthy make it? It remains to be seen.